Colorado is a direct initiative ballot state. Now, what does that mean? That means that they can collect the signatures through the petition process, and those measures go directly on the ballot. Tougher in a state like mine in Massachusetts, where you have to collect the signatures, have through the petition drive, and it has to be approved by the legislature, and then the legislator decides what goes on the ballot. So a state like Colorado, this is why they have 14 questions. They have 14 measures, right, that are going to be on the ballot. And my state only has 5. So if you live in California, this is your way to get some things passed. In Colorado, each proposed measure must address only one subject. Unlike other states, Colorado's single subject rule is closely tied to a measure's ballot title. So that's important as well, guys. You can't have 2 subjects, and it has to be tied to the title. And we'll get into that, and you'll see what we're talking about here. So let's go ahead and go forward here. We can always come back to that part at the end, but I want to get to the ballot measures. Okay. Colorado Amendment 79, Right to Abortion and Health Insurance Coverage Initiative. This is a big one. A yes vote supports creating a right to abortion in the state constitution and allowing the use of public funds for abortion. The initiative would repeal Section 50 of Article 5 of the Colorado Constitution, adopted in 1984, which prohibited the use of public funds for abortion. So listen to this, guys. Supermajority requirement. A 55% supermajority vote is required for the approval of this initiative. So that is important. That's a big one, folks, for Colorado. Right to Abortion and Health Insurance Coverage Initiative. Let's go on to see who supports this. All right. As we can see, Democrat politicians support it, such as Michael Bennett. Michael Bennett always reminds me of Mr. Mackey on South Park. Okay. John Hickenlooper, to name a few. You guys are familiar with those two, I think, out of all of them. But primarily the Democratic Party. The ACLU of Colorado supports this. Catholics for Choice, to name a few. And here's one of the arguments. People enrolled in state health insurance plans, teachers, firefighters, and other state employees should have access to abortion coverage. Coloradans should have the freedom to decide for themselves whether to have an abortion without interference by politicians. So this is a big one in Colorado. And one of the organizations that is opposing this is March for Life and Priests for Life. One of the arguments is the only provision keeping Colorado from being the #1 destination for unrestricted abortion in the U.S. is the 1984 Colorado constitutional prohibition against the use of public funding for abortion. This is what the 2024 number 89 Right to Abortion Initiative is about. Codifying a right to abortion in the Constitution and removing the prohibition against taxpayer dollars subsidizing abortion. Coloradans must say no to abortion on April 12th and at the ballot and spread the truth about life. Yeah, I have a feeling this is going to pass in Colorado. I mean, we've seen this happen in red states since Roe has been overturned. We've seen it pass in red states, and Colorado is like a light blue. So I predict this will probably pass. There has been over $1 million, where are we at over here? Total over $7.9 million spent to support this measure and over $140,000 spent to oppose it. So it's probably going to pass. I could see the majority probably supporting that, but that's a big one. Here's a note here from Roger. He said, something doesn't seem right about it. All these organizations are on board to have public funds finance health insurance to pay for abortions, yet they're not on board for just replacing health insurance with single payer health care. That's true. And that's another one where I don't understand that. I really don't. Like, that's a good point there from Roger. Colorado Amendment 80, Constitutional Right to School Choice Initiative. This is interesting. A yes vote supports providing in the state constitution that each K through 12 child has the right to school choice, providing that all children have the right to equal opportunity to access a quality education, and that parents have the right to direct the education of their children, and defining school choice to include neighborhood schools, charter schools, private schools, home schools, open enrollment schools, and future innovations in education. This one is going to be an interesting one to see how this goes in Colorado, the school choice. And it goes on to say who supports this. House Minority Leader Rose Pugliese, who's Republican, organizations Advanced Colorado Institute, and also Michael Fields, who's also Republican president of Advanced Colorado and sponsor of the initiative. Here's one of the arguments. The initiative would provide essential protection against ongoing attacks on this fundamental principle and is a vital step in securing the ability of parents to make the best educational decision for their children, regardless of a future political pressures. Who opposes this is the Colorado Education Association, of course. They're using the innocuous word of choice as a vehicle for what opens the door clearly for a voucher scheme. And this is exactly what I was going to bring up. This is why you got to be careful about this. There's no other reason to include private schools in the initiative unless that is their ultimate intent. And I want to add something to that. Yeah, the school vouchers have turned out to be a disaster. What has happened is that those students who get those vouchers and choose to use it at a private school oftentimes do not do better at those schools and don't last at those schools. They're more likely to be there for a short-term period of time and then to return back. So the school vouchers have shown, the data shows on that is not working out. So you always got to be careful how they kind of snuck that in there with the private schools. So yeah, there is no money spent to support this measure and $175,000 spent to oppose it. So we'll have to wait and see if that passes. I just hope people read the fine line. Again, a note there from Roger, who helps me with the ballot measures, where he's saying that the opposition says this will make room for the voucher system, but at the same time, it would also allow you to put your child in a school district where you don't pay property taxes in. Yeah, but the school voucher, the studies show that the school vouchers with those kids taking it and using it at a private school, the studies show that it actually does not advance their academic success. And oftentimes those kids get to those schools and they do not perform well. So that's what the data shows us. Colorado Amendment G, property tax exemption for veterans with individual unemployability status amendment. A yes vote would have supported expanding the property tax exemption for veterans with a disability to include veterans with individual unemployability status as determined by the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs. So currently, veterans in Colorado who are rated as 100% permanently disabled, they qualify for that property tax exemption. 50% of the first 200,000 of the property's actual value from the property taxes. So it looks like they're trying to add veterans that are unemployed to be able to have this opportunity as well. So let's see who supports this. Democrats, Rhonda Fields and Robert Marshall. And there's no opposition to this. And I'll say this, I don't think, you guys know how I feel about property taxes. I just don't think this is something that people should have to pay. And that's how I feel about that. I don't think you should have to pay property tax, especially after you've already paid off your house. It's just like when you pay off your car, like you still have to pay for the excise taxes. I never understood that. I'm like, but the car has paid off. What do I still have to pay taxes on it for? So this will be cool with me. I don't think it should just be veterans, but I just don't think people should have to pay property taxes, particularly after they've already paid off their house. No money spent to support or oppose it. And Roger agrees this vote is a layup for yes. Colorado Amendment H, Independent Judicial Discipline Adjudicative Board Amendment. Let's get into this. A yes vote supports creating an independent judicial discipline adjudicative board, and creates rules for the judicial discipline process. The board would be consisted of 4 district judges, 4 attorneys, and 4 citizens, which would conduct disciplinary hearings and hear appeals relating to disciplinary actions from the commission on judicial discipline. Under the amendment, judicial discipline cases would become public once formal proceedings begin, rather than confidential until the process is complete. So again, guys, they are trying to make it so that veterans in Colorado would not have to, would be exempt from property tax. Not just those that have disability, but also those that have unemployability status as well. So that could be really huge for Colorado. Who supports that is Democrats Rhonda Fields and Robert Marshall. There's no money spent to support or oppose it. The next one is Colorado Amendment H, Independent Judicial Discipline Adjudicative Board Amendment, where a yes vote supports creating an independent judicial discipline adjudicative board and create rules for the judicial discipline process. The board would consist of 4 district judges, 4 attorneys, and 4 citizens, which would conduct disciplinary hearings and hear appeals related to disciplinary actions from the Commission on Judicial Discipline. Under amendment, judicial discipline cases would become public once formal proceedings begin, rather than confidential until the process is complete. So this is interesting. One thing I want to mention here, it says that, I want to highlight this, a tribunal of 7 randomly selective Court of Appeals and district judges would be required to review the panel's decision if the complaint is against a Colorado Supreme Court justice, a Colorado Supreme Court justice, a justice staff member, or a justice family member is the complainant or witness in a proceeding, or more than 2 justices have rescued themselves from the proceeding. Who supports this? It's actually kind of bipartisan. You have Bob Gardner, Julia Gonzalez, Mike Lynch, Mike Wiseman, so Republicans and Democrats. Here's one of the arguments. There will be earlier disclosure that a discipline case exists. We will still preserve the confidentiality of complaints, witnesses, and judges in the judicial discipline cases as we protect the confidentiality of anyone in our court system. However, we will give the public better access to data about our judicial discipline system. So let's see about the money. There's no money spent to support or oppose. Here's a note here from Roger Meadows. Nobody saw opposition to this, really, for the simple fact that you got judges on this panel judging and seeing to the disciplinary action of other judges. On top of that, why are the citizens who are selected to be on here not me to outnumber everybody else? There's no way I would vote for this, replace the judges with people from trusted good governance organizations, and have it where the citizens outnumber the attorneys and whoever else is on board. That's an interesting one. This one's interesting. Colorado amendment remove right to bail in first-degree murder cases. Whoa. A yes vote supports removing the right to bail in cases of first-degree murder. The amendment would make first-degree murder an unbailable offense when the proof is evident or the presumption is great. Well. Who supports this? Also bipartisan, Democrats and Republican representatives. Here's one of the arguments. This is a fix that the Colorado Supreme Court has asked us to do to be able to make sure that we have a balanced approach for those who have access to bail. So I think cash bail system just needs to go. Cash bail system is part of the reason why there are some people who may not necessarily be guilty, but they are still in jail because they don't have the money to pay the bail to get out. Right. And when people talk about prisons being overcrowded, part of that has to do with cash bail. Who is opposed to this? Javier Mabry, who is a Democrat, One of his arguments, I felt that it could impact the principle of innocence until proven guilty. If a judge makes a determination that someone is likely guilty before the trial, I worry about the signal that could send to the jury, the prosecution, and the defense. Yeah, that's interesting too. There's no money spent to support or oppose this measure. Quick note here. Yes, this is a tricky one because it's supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. So you don't want to violate the accused rights. But at the same time, there's a duty the government must uphold to the public when it comes to safety. However, like I've always said, enforce the Sixth Amendment so that we can get these people into trial. Matter of fact, I would say prioritize murder cases when it comes to a speedy trial. Yeah, that's a big one. And I think that's a no-brainer. Like, right? We need to have speedy trials in this country. That would help a lot with this. Same-sex marriage. This is interesting. Colorado Amendment J, remove constitutional same-sex marriage ban amendment. A yes vote supports removing the provision of the state constitution that says only a union of one man and one woman shall be valid or recognized as a marriage in this state. I'm actually surprised that's still there for Colorado, just because Colorado has kind of been like the test ground for some of these new ideas and ballot measures, such as like legalizing marijuana, et cetera. Like they did this before we did in Massachusetts. So I'm actually surprised that that was still there. Interesting. Who supports this? Freedom to Marry Colorado is leading this campaign. Supporters, Democratic Party state representatives, also Working Families Party of Colorado, Colorado Education Association, and some of the organizations like ACLU of Colorado. Here's one of the arguments. As representatives of the people of Colorado, it is our shared responsibility to uphold the principles of equality and justice for all citizens, regardless of political affiliations. While we are protected today, our state constitution still reflects outdated language and values. You'll see this too sometimes, guys. There are some states that still have like these blue laws as well on the books. And who opposes Republican Scott Bottoms? His argument is the Democrats want to remove the idea of marriage being between a man and a woman. You have an opportunity to vote against this initiative in November. I took some time to explain how God sees marriage and the fact that we have to stand before God for our decisions. Right. But this is what kills me. There's separation of church and state. So why are you bringing God into this? I don't know. Somebody tell me. There is over $64,000 spent to support this, zero spent to oppose it. So it's probably going to pass. Colorado Amendment K, initiative and referendum filing and judicial retention filing deadlines amendment. A yes vote supports changing the signature deadline for initiative and referendum signature gathering. Therefore, sorting the collection period by 1 week, as well as moving the deadline for justices and judges to file declarations of intent to run for another term by 1 week, in order to allow 1 extra week for the Secretary of State to certify ballot order and content and election officials' deadline to transmit ballots. Who supports this? This is bipartisan, Democrats and Republican representatives and state senators. There is no money spent to support or oppose this. Here's a note here from Roger. Although I understand why the Secretary of State is pushing for this because they need more time to do proper signature verification. However, Colorado only allows 6 months to gather signatures for initiatives and 3 months for veto referendums. Arizona, which is the same size as Colorado, allows for 18 months to get the signatures. So it's already too short. You give them a yard and they will take a mile. You give them a week, giving voters less time to gather signatures. That week can turn into 4 weeks, can turn into 2 months. So no, this initiative gets an absolute 100% no from me. Yeah, I would vote no on this one, guys. You got to be careful with these. This is another one of those questions where I feel like a lot of people just may not be aware. Colorado Proposition 127, prohibit hunting of mountain lion, bobcat, and lynx initiative. I didn't know people were out there hunting damn bobcats. I didn't know this was a thing. A yes vote supports defining and prohibiting trophy hunting as intentionally killing, wounding, pursuing, or entrapping a mountain lion, a bobcat, or a lynx, or discharging or releasing any deadly weapon at a mountain lion, bobcat, or lynx. Under the initiative, mountain lions would no longer be considered big game. This would have the effect of making the mountain lion livestock incidents ineligible for big game damage claims made by the Colorado Parks and Wildlife. Okay, I mean, I didn't even know people were doing this. Like, I'm just being honest with you guys. I'm in Massachusetts. I didn't know people were out there hunting mountain lions, but I try to avoid any mountain lion, but I guess to each his own. Cats Aren't Trophies is leading this campaign. And some of the organizations that support it are Animal Help Now, Animal Wellness Action, Attorneys for Animals, to name a few. I'm not going to read all of those. And one of the arguments is the value of having 3 species of wildcats in Colorado should not solely be measured in the dollars that they bring as fur for trappers, or a head, hide, or a mount for a trophy hunter. Yeah. Mountain lions occupy a unique place in Colorado as an apex predator, bringing vast benefits to Colorado's deer and elk herds. Yeah, again, like I said, I didn't know people were doing that. I would vote yes for this. Like, I would vote for this. Like, stop hunting those damn mountain lions. Save yourselves as well. Who's against this? Senator Perry Will, Republican. Organizations, Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. Of course, Colorado Bow Hunters Association. There's a whole list of them here. One of the arguments, the future of Colorado's wildlife management is at a crossroads. The underpinnings of science-based wildlife management administered by wildlife professionals may be on the ballot this November, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Yeah, how about stop killing the animals? Like, just stop. That's all. That's all I'm asking for. Stop. There is over $1.6 million spent to support this measure and over $660,000 spent to oppose it. Interesting, folks. Roger said he would vote yes for that. Maybe I said it the wrong way. But I would protect those mountain lions. Check this one out. Colorado Proposition 128, Parole Eligibility Initiative. Uh-oh. A yes vote supports requiring offenders convicted of certain violent crimes, such as second-degree murder, first-degree assault, first-degree kidnapping, first or second-degree sexual assault, first-degree arson, first-degree burglary, and aggravated robbery to serve at least 85% of their sentence before parole eligibility, and offenders with 2 prior violent crime convictions to serve their full sentence before beginning parole. This initiative would go into effect January 1st of 2025. So this is interesting because basically what it sounds like what they're trying to do, it says that under this initiative for those crimes that I just mentioned, it's saying that you have to serve 85% of your sentence before being eligible for parole, and earned time for good behavior could not be used to reduce the sentence. So what it sounds like is that they're trying to keep people in jail longer before they are eligible for parole. This could be their attempt to try to curb crime. I don't know, but that's what it sounds like. They're trying to keep prisoners in there longer. Let's go on here. Who supports this? Advanced Colorado Institute and Republican Michael Fields. And one of the arguments is, I think people are really shocked and appalled when they understand that because of earned time, good time, the parole board these violent criminals are getting out at less than half of their sentence. There's many stories about people getting out early, reoffending the victims out there. I think it's definitely worth that money to keep violent criminals in jail longer than they're getting out right now at an average of 46% of their sentence. So again, I think the solution is flawed, because what this tells you is that the problem is the criminal justice system itself. There is no real prison reform, because if people are getting out of prison and they're still becoming, repeat offenders, that means that no rehabilitation is taking place at the prison. So instead of saying, let's keep these people in there longer, what they should be advocating for is real rehabilitation in the prison system in the United States. And other countries have this. There are other countries like Norway that have actual rehabilitation programs in the prison system. So I feel like this is just put a Band-Aid. They're putting a Band-Aid on the wound, and they're not really trying to heal the wound. Opposition, the ACLU of Colorado, and they say here, one of these is, we have seen through American history that increase in penalties on crime does not deter crime. The ballot measure just eliminates a tool that DOC has to help individuals get back on their feet and get back to their families. Yeah, this is a really important one. And also, the longer that you are in prison, the harder it is going to be for you to get a job when you are released from prison. This is just a reality. There is zero money that is spent to support it, and there's over $52,000 spent to oppose it. Based. Now it's time for the vets. Colorado Proposition 129, Veterinarian Professional Associate Initiative. A yes vote supports creating a new profession, the Veterinary Professional Associate, the VPA, requiring a master's degree and registration with the State Board of Veterinary Medicine to practice under supervision of a licensed veterinarian. I mean, let's go. I mean, I have no objections to that, create a new profession. I'm surprised this needs to be, well, I guess because you have to have the license. But this is on the ballot. So this is interesting. So it says here that currently in Colorado, veterinarians must earn a doctor or a veterinary medicine degree, a DVM, which is typically a 4-year degree program after earning a 4-year bachelor's degree. Yeah. Okay. You know what? I can see this happening. Who supports this? ASPCA and Dumb Friends League. That's interesting. Dumb Friends League. Wow. One of the arguments here, we have a severe workforce crisis. There's long wait lines, whether it's routine or emergency, and veterinary hospitals aren't accepting new patients. Yeah, I think veterinary medicine can be overlooked. You know what I mean? Like, I don't hear about many people going into veterinary medicine. Opposition. Who opposes this? The American Veterinary Dental College. There you go. Of course. They're like, hell no. One of the arguments here is that the initiative presents dangerous risk by permitting VPAs to practice the full scope of veterinary medicine, including performing surgery with inadequate, mostly online training. Surgical procedures, even routine surgeries, are highly complex and require extensive veterinary training and expertise. Interesting. Over 1.3 million spent to support, over 965,000 spent to oppose. Colorado, you guys have some interesting questions this time. I don't know. Colorado Proposition 130, Law Enforcement Funding Initiative. A yes vote supports creating the Peace Officer Training and Support Fund to provide funding for law enforcement training, retention, and hiring. Training surrounding the use of force and death benefits for surviving spouses and children of officers or first responders killed in the line of duty. We need to be careful with the way that this one is worded, because this almost sounds like, watch this. Under the initiative, the Colorado state legislature would be required to appropriate $350 million to the Peace Officer Training and Support Fund. The funds will be used as grants to law enforcement agencies for the following. Increased salaries is the first thing you see on here. Providing one-time hiring, retention, merit bonus, etc., to attract exceptional law enforcement. This almost kind of sounds like a cushier version of Cop City. That's why I'm like, we need to be careful with this one. Make sure, those of you in Colorado, make sure you look through this one very closely. This is what R really just said the same thing. This is a Cop City bill, probably. That's what I'm feeling, you know? So you got to be careful how they word these sometimes, right? The initiative would create a death benefit for surviving spouse. So they're talking about surviving spouse, etc. But this sounds like hiring. See, look at this. Hiring additional police to address specific geographic areas or types of criminal activity, such as gang activity, drug cartels, human trafficking, stolen vehicles. Yeah, nah, fam. They're trying to, okay, so they're trying to increase policing. I would not vote for this. Me personally, I wouldn't vote for it. Not down with the popo. Who supports this? Advanced Colorado Institute and Michael Fields, who's Republican. One of the arguments is families and communities across Colorado say that crime and illegal drug trafficking are among their biggest concerns. So do you see what's happening here, guys? They worded it as a peace officer training, but this is really just another way for them to fund the police more and to increase the police state. We have to be careful with the wording. And then who opposes this is the ACLU. And they go on to say it's designed to waste taxpayer money while masquerading as a ballot measure for public safety. And I know in Colorado, you guys have a lot of these questions to go through for election day. And that's why I said, like, try to take your time to read through these prior to when you go to vote, because they really don't want you to, they're like, oh, they're not going to read all of this, right? And there is zero money spent to support this and over 52,000 spent to oppose it. So that tells you something there. Colorado Proposition 131, top 4 ranked choice voting initiative. Here we go again with ranked choice voting. A yes vote supports establishing top 4 primary elections and ranked choice voting for U.S. Senate, House of Representatives, Governor, Attorney General, Secretary of State, Treasurer, Colorado University Board of Regents, State Board of Education, and the state legislature. So here we go with the ranked choice voting. Who supports this? Fort Collins Mayor Jenny Arndt. We can see it has bipartisan support between Republicans and, of course, Democrat politicians. Colorado Chamber of Commerce supports this. So does Fair Vote. So does the League of Women Voters of Colorado. Haven't heard from you guys in a while. And one of the arguments is, by expanding voter choice, we believe that Proposition 131 will encourage balance on both sides of the aisle and reduce the polarization that leads to bad policy for business. All right, let's see if this passes in Colorado, guys. Let's see. And who opposes this? Lauren Boebert, of course. Oh, my God. Dave Williams, and of course, Democratic Party of Colorado. So this is interesting, guys. You have bipartisanship that's supports it, and you have bipartisanship that opposes it, which shows you that both parties don't want you to have other options. This is crazy. So you got Lauren Boebert and the Democratic Party of Colorado here, and the Green Party of Colorado also opposes this. So this is a whole mixed bag. So let's hear what they got to say. The Green Party brought this up. Just like the origin of the proposal, it's backed by big money. So in the open primary, what you're going to find is those who have access to those resources are those who are interested in protecting their corporate interests. They're going to fund the candidates that best align with them. Oh, that's a good point. So that's coming from Patrick Dillon of the Green Party. Lauren Boebert says, I will oppose this effort to rig our electoral system in Colorado with everything I have. Ranked choice voting is a scheme launched by well-moneyed interests who are only concerned with their own power. Okay, so it seems like this is a money issue. So we got to be careful how they're framing ranked choice voting, guys. You see how they're trying to frame it? We got to be careful. There was another one that I did recently that it was clear it would not benefit third parties. Now, there's over $8 million that is spent to support this and $61,000 spent to oppose it. That's interesting, folks. Yeah, the money. This is what Roger mentions. In regards to you can have a situation where those with big money flood the zone who makes the top four, leaving no room for grassroots. Yeah. And Colorado Proposition JJ retains sports betting tax revenue for water projects measure. A yes vote supports allowing the state to retain tax revenue collected above $29 million annually from the tax on sports betting proceeds authorized by voters in 2019 to fund state water projects through the Water Plan Implementation Cash Fund. That's interesting. This has bipartisan support as well from Democrat and Republican politicians. The Colorado Gaming Association supports this, and it says we certainly always intend to pay that 10% tax with sports betting. The fact we exceeded expectations, I don't think changes that. Interesting. And support, $490,000 spent to support this, $0 spent to oppose it. So yeah, Roger would vote. I would go yes for that too. That would be a good one, the gaming one. And then the last, I think this is the last one. Yeah, because Colorado has a lot. Colorado Proposition KK, excise tax on firearms dealers, manufacturers, and ammunition vendors measure. Oh, a yes vote supports levying a 6.5% excise tax on the manufacture and sale of firearms and ammunition to be imposed on firearms dealers, manufacturers, and ammunition vendors, and appropriating the revenue to the firearms and ammunition excise tax cash fund to be used to fund crime victim services programs, and also education programs and mental and behavioral health programs for children and veterans. That's interesting. So it says here, what would the measure do? So it looks like they would distribute money as follows: $30 million to the Colorado Crime Victim Services Fund, $5 million for behavioral and mental health, $3 million to behavioral and mental health for children behavior crisis, and the $5 million was for veteran mental health, and $1 million for the school disbursement program cash fund. And this is supported by Democrat politicians. And one of the arguments is it's not removing anything. It's not impacting anyone's Second Amendment rights whatsoever. This is really looking at keeping those services available that families, parents, and kids need. Who opposes it? Sorry. Of course, the NRA, the National Rifle Association, is against this. And their argument is that firearms and ammunition are already subject to an 11% federal excise tax through the Pittman-Robertson Act, along with a variety of other state and local taxes and fees. Interesting. No money spent to support or oppose. And that is Colorado, ladies and gentlemen. So